So every time before we go into the Vidui, our confession, our liturgy starts with what we just sang. Ki anu amecha, our God and God of our ancestors, forgive us, pardon us, grant us atonement, for we are your people, and you are God. We are your children, and you are parent, and goes on. This liturgy, in my opinion, we start the Vidui always from a place of relationship with God. So Ki anu amecha, every time we do the Vidui, comes first, right before it, so that as we're about to do these, knocking on our hearts, we're saying, we are in relationship. We are in relationship with you, Hashem, and we're set up. It's almost like we're doing the Vidui from a place of a secure base or secure attachment with Hashem. That God is here, God is a forgiving God, and we know we're set up for success in that endeavor. And so it's through that point in our liturgy, and then we're going to come back there, that we're going to pause for me to say some words tonight. So just first, I want to, again, invite everybody to just get in touch with your body a little bit. Feel your feet on the ground. Shake if you need to shake a little bit out. Just get back in touch with yourself wherever you are. I want to read one of my favorite Hasidic stories. And it's actually included in our Machzor. If you want to take a look later, I can find the page and show you. But this is the story. And Hasidic stories in particular, I think I love them because they often and usually end up being about the human soul in some way. So this is the story. Once the Baal Shem Tov, who is known to be the founder of Hasidism, he lived in the late 17th and 18th centuries in what's now Ukraine. So once the Baal Shem Tov commanded Rabbi Zev Kitsis, that's one of his students, to learn the secret meanings behind the blasts of the ram's horn, the shofar, because Rabbi Zev was to be his caller, shofar caller on Rosh Hashanah. So Rabbi Zev learned the secret meanings and wrote them down on a slip of paper. When the time came for the blowing of the ram's horn, he began to search everywhere for the slip of paper, but it was gone. And he did not know on what meanings he should concentrate. He was greatly saddened. Brokenhearted, he wept bitter tears, and he called the blasts of the ram's horn without concentrating on the secret meanings behind them. Afterward, the Baal Shem Tov comforted him, saying this: in the habitation of the king are to be found many rooms and apartments, and there are different keys for every lock. But the master key of all is the axe, with which it is possible to open all the locks on all the gates. So it is with the ram's horn. The secret meanings are the keys. Every gate has another meaning. But the master key is the broken heart. When a man truly breaks his heart before God, he can enter into all the gates of the apartments of the sovereign above all sovereigns, the Blessed Holy One. Heartbreak as the master key, heartbreak as the opener of connection with God, with a way out of our current mess, with a way out of human versus human, as we talked about in Rosh Hashanah, but up to something bigger. Heartbreak as what cracks us wide open. Karov Adonai. Hashem is close to the brokenhearted, from Psalms. I want us to take a few moments right now. And I want to invite you to put your feet on the ground again, take a few breaths. To know that on any day, really, but especially on Yom Kippur, we don't have to be afraid of tears, of big feelings. Whatever heartbreak you're feeling in your life or in the world, that's included in all of this here, and I want to invite all of us into it, whatever your heartbreak is. Personal heartbreak, world heartbreak. And one huge heartbreak, of course, that so many of us are feeling from so many different angles and layers is around Israel, Gaza, and the West Bank. We feel the heartbreak of a place that's supposed to be filled with sacredness, holiness, the divine for us and for so many people, filled instead with so much hate, blame, desecration. We feel heartbreak when we think of so many people we personally know there, maybe ourselves being there, living there for periods of time, maybe our parents, our children, our cousins, nieces, nephews, friends, either in Gaza, Israel, the West Bank, to know that they're all living in terrifying circumstances which no one should live in. We feel heartbreak. To feel the heartbreak of Hamas's attack on civilians on October 7th, 2023, the murder of 1,200 people, the sexual assault, the intimidation, the taking of 250 hostages, the heartbreak of the fact that there are still hostages in the tunnels of Gaza, and the heartbreak, too, that we feel when others are unwilling to recognize the horrors of that day. To feel the heartbreak of the families of those hostages who've been screaming for their government not to abandon the hostages, and the heartbreak we feel and the horror we feel at the sense of abandonment of the Israeli government. To feel the heartbreak and the trauma of the assault on Gaza, the over 60,000 people killed, including 20,000 children, and those numbers don't include those who have died for lack of medical care or from starvation. 70% of the structures in Gaza in rubble, 94% of the hospitals damaged or destroyed. An internal Israeli intelligence database, which differs and contradicts the public statements of the government, says that over 80% of these deaths are civilian deaths. To feel the heartbreak of a Judaism that in so many ways right now defends this, a spiritual desecration. In order to live in the world these days, because humanity is treated with such disregard, we seem to have to harden our hearts just to exist in the world and just to do our daily tasks. But we can't lose this fact. We shouldn't have to do that. Rabbi Sarah Brammer-Schley, a friend and colleague of mine, delivered a gorgeous sermon on Rosh Hashanah, which I read just this past week and was wowed by, where she spoke about how she feels that the world is worshiping violence rather than love. In it, she said this: somehow we have been conditioned to believe that violence is more realistic than nonviolence, that violence is more pragmatic than true love and connection. I fear we have idols in our kingdom. I fear we have come to worship the wrong things. She then, and I too, want to bring in the words of Vivian Silver's son. Vivian Silver was one of the victims of Hamas's attack on October 7th. She was an Israeli peace activist, devoting her life to Israelis and Palestinians working together despite it all. And at the unveiling of her tomb, her son Yonatan said the following, really inspirational words from her son. He said about her, throughout her life, she expressed hope for a different reality. Since her death, many have said to me, isn't it ironic, against all logic, that a peace activist like her was slaughtered in a war? No, he said. Once war breaks out, dying is the most logical thing. What is illogical is the very existence of the war. What is ironic is that after she is buried in the ground, the war continues to rage above her. That we keep clinging to war time and time again, hoping for a different outcome. That we continue to invest in it. We improve warning systems, build shelters, reinforce rooms, the Iron Dome, underground walls, so many financial resources spent on maintaining a reality that isn't even supposed to exist. So much mental energy just to avoid seeing, knowing, feeling. This is still Yonatan talking about his mom. But my mother always saw, knew, and felt. She saw the hell developing in parallel with the paradise, felt the universal pain of loss and fear, and knew that our only chance to achieve a life of safety and prosperity is peace. Now, much to my sorrow, her death is being dedicated to these same goals. But I pose this challenge to myself and to you so that she may at last rest in peace. I invite us all to just feel the heartbreak for another moment, to feel the enormity of what humans are doing to one another, that we're acting in ways that are actually definitely not aligned with ourselves. I invite us to all just feel that in quiet for a moment. So as I've been thinking about what my role is as a rabbi in this time, and specifically a rabbi speaking to Jewish community, and specifically on Yom Kippur, I've concluded for this moment that I think my most important role is two things. Number one, to bring in Palestinian voices to be heard within Jewish community, because for so long and in so many intentional ways, Palestinian voices have been erased in Jewish spaces, allowing for the dehumanization of Palestinians on a mass level. And number two, to encourage us Jews who have been victims of deep, deep dehumanization ourselves, and who still are, and who have been persecuted in many ways throughout our history, to recognize, know, and act on the fact that we need deep healing, and to turn toward healing, away from blame, and towards healing. The second one I'll begin to talk about tonight, and we'll speak a lot more to tomorrow as well. So I'll start with the first one, bringing in some Palestinian voices to our sanctuary, which again are so often erased in Jewish spaces, made invisible. And I decided to bring in some voices focusing specifically on people who I have actual relationships with, either myself or just a degree or two removed. But of course, it takes just a Google search online to find incredible poetry, stories, and art by Palestinians in Gaza and in the West Bank, so I encourage you to look. So my friend Natasha, who used to intern at the State Department, met Fatih when he came to US on a US aid program. Here's what she wrote about him recently when sharing a GoFundMe for his family. When I met Fatih in 2013, I found myself talking with the first person I had ever met from Gaza for so long that it was until we were kicked out of the room that we stopped talking after the event we attended. Turns out we were both very interested in environmental issues and the challenges of water management in Israel-Palestine. He shared with me about his family and life in Gaza and showed deep curiosity in my own background and relationship to Israel-Palestine. We stayed in touch. In October of 2023, I tried to reach out to him. Admittedly, it had been a few years since we had spoken. Months passed, and I didn't hear from him. Eventually, I saw that his father had posted on Facebook that he, Fatih, and his family were alive and had been displaced from their home and were currently without access to electricity or the internet. Makes sense why he didn't reach out. Finally, a few months later, Fatih reconnected, and we've been in touch since. So Natasha has been organizing a fundraiser for Fatih's family, who are still alive now. And recently, as a thank you from the family, she received a video that Fatih and his wife Nadia had taken, as you can imagine, just as of their two kids, who I don't know how old they are. They looked about 5 and 10, maybe in the video, of their kids saying thank you, all in Arabic. And Natasha knows Arabic, so translated it into English. And so this is first the younger one spoke and said, "Hello, how are you? My name is Vidui. We love you so much. Mama and Papa told us how kind you are. You stood with us. We love you so much, and you love us so much. And we hope that one day we can come visit you at the end of the war. God willing, the war will end soon, and we will see you in good health. And then the older one comes on the camera and says, I'm Yemen. I'm very happy because we left the tent and my dad was able to provide us an apartment. What's the reason? First, in the tent, there were a lot of flies and it was very hot and the insects pinch you in the night. Water was hard to get. The bathroom was very small. The tent cramped. The fire difficult. And the whole place was tight. We didn't know how we could continue in the tent. But now the situation is much better. It was so hot there, but here it is cooler. This place can protect us from the bombing. The sound of the bombing was terrifying. Now I feel better. I'm more comfortable, and I'm relieved that Mama is more comfortable, and everyone is. I'm happy because Mama and Papa told us how kind you are and how kind you are that you stood by us. We appreciate that. Because of you, we have a home. I love you very much. Inshallah, the war will end soon, and we will see you in good health. So some of you know that when I studied in Jerusalem during rabbinical school, I was part of a program called Achvat Amim, which is also the way I got connected with the storytelling project in the Sefer Yata, which I'll share more about. But first, as part of Achvat Amim, we had lots of guest speakers come in. And one of them who joined us via Zoom was named Khalil, a sweet, sweet, very sweet man from Gaza, who was killed by Israel's attacks on October 30th, 2023. When I was in Achvat, Khalil spoke with us over Zoom, and I was so moved by his stories that I sort of followed him the past years. I was never in personal touch with him, but I was in lots of WhatsApp groups with people who were in closer touch with him. And as I was looking back, just in the writing of this sermon, I have a message on my phone. I couldn't believe this. It was from October 7th, 2023, which actually was shocking to me to look at now because I didn't realize it was started on the same day from Khalil. But here's what was happening on that WhatsApp chain. So one of our friends from the WhatsApp group said, I'm currently at my sister's with her family, northeast of Ashkelon. I've never been in the land when something like this was going on. It feels really scary and confusing. They're religious, so I'm using my phone in private to communicate and stay updated on what's happening. This is alumni from Achvat Amim and some other people. Then someone else said, stay safe, everyone. I'm sending love to everyone. I'm currently safe and I'm sheltering in Jerusalem. This is from Khalil in Gaza, somebody who's close touch with him. And then she quotes a text from him. And Khalil said, great to hear from you. I evacuated and Israel has started to attack. I hope anything happens to make us meet soon in person. Whatever it is, I hope for safety to all people. I started following, because I knew Khalil from Zoom, I started paying attention to this WhatsApp chain and just reading the updates. And I'm going to just read you some of the updates over time. Someone sent a screenshot from Khalil. Don't feel that you're bothering me, no. Your messages give me strength and help me overcome this miserable situation. Please send my love and huge hugs to Achvat participants. That's the program Achvat Avim. I really love them and am proud of having all of you as my friends. I'm really overwhelmed by your messages. I tell people here about you and how you think about us. That's one reason that made me decide that if I survive this war, I will travel for my PhD. I'm still searching for a scholarship, and I think it will be a great chance to meet you and them in person. Over time, I was following these updates, and some of them were happy. I found internet for a little bit, and some of them were my neighbor's house was destroyed. And then after all of this, the devastating news just on the 30th, so not much later. And this is from the same person who texted that first update about him. Hey, everyone, I'm so sorry to deliver some unreal and devastating news. Khalil Abu Yahya, dear friend of many and partner of Achvat Amim, was killed with his family in Gaza. The news is incomprehensible, and we are still in complete shock and devastation. We will be creating spaces for commemoration, more to come. Please let's remember to be there for each other in this immensely dark time. We will never forget the love he showed each of us and the unending trust he had in a future where people are all free and live side by side. Let's invite everyone to take a breath. One of my first drafts of this sermon was just an entire sermon about my friend Auda, who many of you have probably heard about, was killed by a violent settler just recently in Masafer Yatta in the West Bank. I'm going to talk about him more tomorrow, probably. It's hard to write about him, but he's a person who, to me, seemed invincible because what he stood for was love, not violence. And he was shot, actually, recently found out, through the heart, which just seems incomprehensible to me as I think about who he was. I want to transition, and we'll talk about this as well more tomorrow, to the second piece of what I feel like is my role here as a rabbi, and that's about my deep belief that we as Jews need to turn toward healing, given the ways we've been dehumanized and the deep, deep trauma that we have from that. From trauma comes constant fear, comes a heightened sense that everyone's against you. Just want to share a little bit of a more playful story that turned really deep. So about 10 years ago, I was visiting my grandmother, my mom's mom, who we called Mom, with a close friend of mine. And Mom had just gotten an iPad at age, he was 90 something, can you imagine? So we were playing with the iPad and experimenting with it. We were testing out its movie making abilities, and we started doing like a whole improv theater production on an iPad. I still have the video of it. It's like 20 minutes long. And my friend who was acting in this theater production was fully in character. You can imagine my grandmother, who was in her 90s, was like moving, couldn't cognitively quite do the improv scene. She was like moving in and out of her own reality and the reality of the improv scene. And so at one point in this play, there was like an external threat that had nothing to do with Judaism or anything, just an external threat. And my grandmother was reacting in the play and said, "Oh, do you think that's dangerous? Well, maybe they're against Jews. Maybe they're against Jews." Okay. And then my friend said, "Oh, Jews, like what is that? She's like, "Well, I'm Jewish." My friend in character acting was like, "Oh, what's Jewish?" And my grandmother said, "Well, the Nazis tried to kill the Jews. That's Jewish. That's what Jewish is." Now, I've watched this video many times. I cherish it because it's a really amazing video. But each time I watch it, I have a slightly different reaction to my grandmother's definition of Judaism based on being victims of the Nazis. Sometimes, depending on what's going on in the world, I feel different ways about it. But every single time I've watched the video, one reaction has been consistent, and that's heartbreak. My grandmother's definition of Judaism is that the Nazis are evil and that we were attacked by the Nazis. Now, importantly, something about me, which is lucky because I'm a rabbi, I really, really love Judaism. I really love Judaism. I love the extremely vast, broad, deep content of Judaism. I love how it contains all these laws and debates, mystical teachings, teaching of the soul. I love its music, singing, its liturgy, its poetry, its song. I love how it talks about God. I love its culture, its art, its vibrancy. Judaism contains so much. It contains whole creative, forward-looking worlds. For my grandmother to define Judaism as being victims of the Nazis, it's heartbreaking. All of that Jewish culture and vibrancy and life gets completely erased. There's no room for it. I read a teaching by Rabbi Gabriel Horan, a rabbi who also works as a therapist and a life coach. And he points out the following deep teaching. He writes, the word for suffering in Hebrew, yisurim, shares the same root as the word for self-improvement, musar. We know musar, right? Musar. Character development, which in turn shares the same root as the word to change directions. Sor, as we just talked about. And then he quotes the Talmud. The Talmud, therefore, says that if a person sees that suffering has befallen him, he should examine his deeds. I want to continue quoting this rabbi just a bit. He says this, victimhood creates an insatiable desire for external support. An insatiable desire for external support. As a passive victim, you look to others to help you move on. The first rule in therapy and personal growth is that you have to turn inward and that you can only help someone who wants to be helped. And ultimately, you can only empower him to help himself. He continues, the flip side of the attitude that others are responsible for my suffering means that others are also responsible for my success. It is the ultimate excuse for failure, the antithesis of an attitude needed to begin to change. Judaism is really, really good at knowing that two truths that seem contradictory can exist together. One truth, we were and are victims. Another truth, we're stuck in a narrative of inevitable victimhood. Two truths, we are and were victims. Two truths, we have made and do make others victims. Judaism is good at knowing that when we can hold two truths as one at one time, we have a greater understanding of what's actually going on. If we stay stuck, we don't get to live out the vibrancy of our actual lives. We don't get to experience the song, the debate, the beautiful melodies. And when we're stuck in a narrative of only inevitable victimhood, while we also have sovereignty and power over another people, then we can cause a lot of harm. And none of this is okay. If we're stuck at waiting for insatiable support, we can get tricked by a US government who uses our fear as a tool in the attacks on democratic norms. We have to be careful. The secret meanings are the keys. Every gate has another meaning, but the master key is a broken heart. Hashem is close to the brokenhearted. I invite us all into this wrestling. Gemar Chatima Tova. May you be inscribed in the book of life. We'll invite Eliana back up, and we move now into the Vidui, again, from that place of a secure base with Hashem. Ki anu amecha, we are your people. And we begin with the English on page 444. Let's read together.